Welcome back. Tonight we watched the final movie in the Nolan trilogy of Batman films, The Dark Knight Rises.
You should be as afraid of him as I am.
I won't bury you. I've buried enough members of the Wayne family.
Connor, what is the plot of The Dark Knight Rises?
The Dark Knight Rises takes place 5 years after The Dark Knight. Batman has become a recluse. Bruce Wayne, I should say. He is basically crippled from his time as Batman. He no longer has any cartilage. He's weakened. And he meets Selina Kyle, who is working for a man played by that dude who played Director Krennic in Rogue One. And he's working for Bane, the Masked Man. And Bane has created a plan to take over Gotham as kind of a Gotham warlord and then blow it up for some reason. So Batman tries to stop Bane, but Batman's back is broken and he's thrown into the pit of despair, or whatever the fuck it's called, the prison pit. And he busts out of the prison pit and he frees the police officers, and then him and Selina Kyle, Catwoman, and the rest of the Gotham police officers get a big inexplicable fist fight against the criminals. And then it turns out Talia al Ghul is really behind everything, because the girl who Bruce Wayne banged in one scene and took over Wayne Tech, which I forgot to mention, turns out she's Talia al Ghul. Twist. And then Batman blows up the nuclear bomb and apparently dies, but not really, because Alfred sees him at the cafe and Morgan Freeman finds out that he fixed the autopilot on his plane thing, piloted drone. Aidan, what did you think of The Dark Knight Rises?
This movie's a fucking mess. This movie's full of plot holes deeper than the fucking pit prison thing. In fact, the movie's generally sloppy. I mean, given a quick rundown beat by beat, the plane scene is pretty infamous. I don't think I have to cover that again.
I think we've covered that
you.
about 700 million times, so.
There's the fucking, every single cop in Gotham gets locked underground for like 2 months. And they all, like, every single one, except for Joseph Gordon-Levitt, who plays Robin. Not the character Robin, but his name is fucking Robin, and he's a cop. And every cop except him and Commissioner Gordon gets locked in the fucking underground tunnels of Gotham. And then 2 months later, when they finally get freed...
3, actually.
3 months later, they all come out perfectly clean, they're not starving, they're all perfectly fine. Looks like they all just took fucking showers and had manicures, and they run out of there. They don't have fucking grotesquely long
Well, Joseph
fingernails.
Gordon-Levitt's his partner was this very skinny Asian guy who I assume they're just like, damn, this dude looks like a Holocaust survivor, so we'll focus on him for one scene. But once they're actually fighting, then everyone's well-nourished.
There's so many things that are just like tiny little things that are wrong all over the place. When all the cops get out, the cops and all of Bane's soldier guys have a face-off, and for some reason the cops don't have their weapons anymore. And then all of Bane's soldiers throw their guns to the ground and everyone starts fist fighting. It's like, you have guns, just fucking shoot each other to death. What is the fucking point? Talia has the worst death scene in history, where she crashes her car and then like the actress fucked up. And Christopher Nolan was like, no, it's fine, we're not doing another take, we're done. There's the whole plot point about Selina Kyle wants like this magical thing that wipes your name off the internet, and it's so ridiculous. And then one of the characters is like, "Yeah, that's not real," but then it is. It just is. And there's no explanation for why it exists. They're like, "No, it didn't work. It wasn't real," and then it just is. For no reason. It's stupid. Batman surviving the bomb, the fucking...
We haven't even mentioned Joseph Gordon-Levitt yet, who kind of just...
He doesn't do much in the movie besides his name being Robin at the end. He's kind of just like the only cop who's not underground.
He magically found out Batman's identity because he was an orphan and he could just tell when he met him that he was Batman.
Yeah, the orphan
because they both were angered or something because they were orphans. Which was kind of weird because when he was a kid, even if you dial it back 5 years, Joseph Gordon-Levitt's probably like mid-30s.
Oh, are we talking like in real life or in the movie? I think you're supposed to be very young for a cop, like 25 maybe.
Okay, but even so, Batman, realistically, if this takes place 5 years after The Dark Knight, then Batman's been around since 2005, so 8 years. That's the time frame. So if he was 25, then he was like 17. He wasn't just a little kid. And Batman, it's not like Batman was on the news. He was like a secret person the whole time. Like there might be minor pictures of this dude driving around on his Batman bike, but how could he have possibly have known that?
There's the city's about to be nuked in 20 minutes, and Batman spends like 4 hours painting a giant...
Remember, it was 23 days, and after an awkward cut, it was 18 hours.
Yeah, and then Batman spends like 7 hours making a giant flaming bat symbol on the bridge. And it's like, there's so much shit in this movie that just like tiny individual pieces that do not come together in any fucking way. And it just makes it so like... I wouldn't even say like miserable. It's more like confusing and funny. I mean, everyone laughs at the plane scene and all the dialogue in that scene and fucking...
No one cared who I was till I put on the mask.
If I pull that off, will you die?
It would be extremely painful.
You're a big guy.
For you.
Putting the blood in... Dr. Pavel's blood in the corpse and all that other shit, but like everything, every step along the way of this movie, there's something stupid happening. The whole stock exchange thing, where Bane breaks into the stock exchange with an army full of guys with guns, and then wastes all of Wayne Enterprises' money, and for some reason...
Or something. That whole fucking...
He does something with the money, and it's all gone. All of Wayne Enterprises' money's gone because Bane attacks the stock market. And, like, this is just allowed to happen? Like, the government doesn't step in and do some sort of insurance shit? Mm-hmm. Or all the transactions that happened during that time aren't reversed? Because there's, like, obvious fraud, and it's the fucking...
Well, if transactions were had... You think it would be pretty easy for them to say, like, I'm sure the transaction records say, like, at 8:30, Bruce Wayne wasted all of Wayne Enterprises' money.
And then there's security footage of Bane and, like, 1,700 armed guards coming in and wasting his money.
You would think that there would be
there's no way that would be allowed
like
to go through. There's no way it'd be approved.
Right.
It doesn't just happen instantaneously either. Like, there's a lot of approval steps. Unless Bane just frauded all those approval steps and the government was like... Like, there's so much dumb
Also, the fact
stuff.
that Gotham was under martial law for apparently 3 months since the cops went underground, were forced under... All the police officers in Gotham
Every
went
single
underground.
one.
Well, not everyone. There was like 20 police officers left or something, but... After the majority of Gotham's police officers were stuck underground for 3 months, there was no, like, you know, the military, like, the fucking president wasn't like, okay, let's send guys in there.
Well,
like, imagine the news from the outside where they're like, Gotham City, fucking...
If they sent anyone in, Bane would blow up the nuke and kill everyone.
I guess.
Which is stupid, but, you know.
Okay. Only Dr. Pavel. Dr. Pavel's the only one in the world that could reverse it.
There's the court scene, which was supposed to have Heat Legend, but he died, and so they just replaced him with the Scarecrow, and that's kind of
And it was
awkward because he's not
painfully out
anything
of-
like the Scarecrow.
It was literally like the dialogue written for the Joker. I don't think was changed at all.
No, they just slapped the fucking Scarecrow in there because he wasn't dead.
Right.
Yeah,
Why not
I
even
mean-
just like have like I don't know. I don't know what other Batman villain you could throw in there because it's blatantly written to be the Joker, but maybe like just cameo some other character they weren't going to use anyways.
Yeah.
Mad Hatter.
The big Talia twist is a pretty bad twist. I think anyone with even a moderate amount of familiarity with the comics could probably take a stab at the fact that whatever her fake name was, Tonyetta or some shit, was Talia.
Well, the thing that made it really fucking stupid wasn't just the fucking... I don't know. The fact that the story molded itself around the twist. Like, the twist was bad because she bangs Bruce Wayne to gain his trust, but that was unnecessary because
And
she
she bought
buys
all
it
his
with her own money to
stocks.
own the company. But then on top of that, you have Director Krennic guy who is trying to buy out Wayne Enterprises, and Bane and Talia bring him into the plan for some reason, despite the fact that if we knew it was Talia the whole time, then he's unnecessary. Like, the only
Yeah, no,
reason
he's
Director
completely
Krennic
unnecessary
would
for
have
that
been
plot.
there is so that they could mask the fact that Talia was the one trying to take over the company. But they didn't need...
But she doesn't take over the company because she gives it back to Bruce Wayne. It was literally just to gain his trust, so there was literally zero reason for Director Krennic to be in this movie at all.
No, but Director Krennic, even if she kept the company, even when she was the CEO of the company, it didn't fucking matter, dude.
Yep.
Because she was the acting CEO when he was in the pit. And she didn't, like... You would think reasonably at that point when her plan is going under, and nothing would change if she did a big reveal or not did a big reveal at that point. So why wouldn't she just do a reveal? Because then Bane and his guys came in and would still shoot at them and stuff, and
Yeah.
presumably she just had to use her wits about her to not get shot by Bane's guys who were rapidly shooting at her. So my question remains, what in the fuck was the point of Director Krennic? Was it in case Bruce Wayne found out there was a hostile takeover, then he thought it was Director Krennic? But then Director Krennic wasn't being very subtle as it was, so it's not like it was like a double insurance plan or something. Because she just bought the company anyway. So no matter what situation you look at, Director Krennic was just there as a fucking red herring for the audience.
Yeah.
And nothing else.
The movie is generally awkward and clunky. It feels like a first draft most of the time.
Also, I want to point out, I'm sorry, but Director Krennic was the one who bought the person who did the Fresh Slate initiative. So I guess maybe if Bane used the Fresh Slate USB drive to wipe Bruce Wayne's money, that's just a fan theory because I didn't really gather that from the movie. But if that was the case, maybe that's why they hired Director Krennic?
I don't think they said that in the movie, but whatever. The movie's generally clunky and awkward. It pretty much feels like a first draft for the most part. It's still shot well enough, as Nolan tends to do, but this movie really highlights Nolan's flaws of terrible dialogue and awkward transitions and general clunkiness. There's a few cool scenes sprinkled throughout. I'd argue far less than The Dark Knight. Even, like,
Right.
There's the motorcycle scene, that's kind of cool. And then, I guess the scene where he's chasing around in the bat helicopter plane jet spaceship thing is kind of okay.
The motorcycle scene. I thought the football scene was kind of cool because they got like 10,000 extras. I think I read at the time it was like the most extras they ever had in the scene or something.
Yeah. But everything is connected so badly, and most things are just like so awkwardly clunky by themselves that the bad transitioning that Nolan has and the bad dialogue really don't help. I think it's generally more boring than The Dark Knight is. A lot less action, a lot less going on. Hard to care about Bane because he's not doing a lot. Even, Talia is hard to care about because she's just like does nothing up until the very end, and then she's like, "Oh, I'm evil."
That's the other thing that
then
sucks
she dies in
about
a
the
car
twist
crash.
Is like, she's barely a character. She's clearly just there. Like, she would have no significance in the movie if it wasn't for the fact that she becomes Talia at the end, or it turns out she was Talia.
Anyway, Connor, what did you think of The Dark Knight Rises?
I don't know. I didn't completely hate it. This movie, like The Dark Knight, had a good, very nice, very high quality sequences that not a lot of directors could pull off. That said, it was a lot more few and far between than The Dark Knight, and the transitions and the general logic of the movie had me confused the entire time. Like, The Dark Knight definitely has stuff you have to pay attention to understand or, like, fully grasp the plot, but it's all there. Where sometimes there's so much shit getting thrown at the wall in this movie, I have a hard time understanding. Like, when Director Krennic's trying to take the hostile takeover, I thought it was because he lost all his money because the reactors that he was making, which turned out to be the bomb at the end. Which Morgan Freeman mentioned earlier that his company wasn't making money because of that. So that's what I thought they were talking about. But then it also may have been because of what Bane did at the stock exchange?
I think it was entirely the stock thing, but then also...
But then you have the idea that you would think they would be able to see that these transactions were completed by Bane. Like, you would think they would be like, not only did this happen at the time of the heist, but Christian Bale wasn't there. So you'd think it would all be reversed, but... I don't know. I guess. It was stupid. And then we didn't really... it wasn't like they were discussing why they should kick him off. He just kind of showed up and they're like, he should be here. And then they got Director Krennic's like, no, he shouldn't. He crashed our stocks. And it's like, is it because he crashed his stocks with the reactor or the stock exchange? Because we watched that scene 4 times and I'm still not convinced. Maybe I missed one line of context or something. But the point is, I shouldn't have to sit here and be fucking baffled and confused by the core story. Because at the end of the day, the only shit that was actually good were the exciting sequences and the fucking action in this movie. And everything else just made no fucking sense. There was a lot more choppy dialogue. Joseph Gordon-Levitt's character was there exclusively to make the end more spine tingle, exciting. Oh, Batman's not really dead, but he's passing it on. Oh, his name is Robin. Because general audiences wouldn't know what it was if he said my real name's Dick Grayson.
Well, no, they'd be like,
and
Dick
that also
Grayson.
had to be a twist.
His name is Penis, he. And they wouldn't understand also.
Right, no. Both is what they assume. Even though I feel like, I don't know. That's just way too on the nose to be like, oh, your name's Robin, eh? And he's like, I don't like that name. Well, fuck off. That was fucking stupid.
You should go by your legal name from now on. I think it's
Robin.
pretty nice. Nightwing.
Right. Nightwing. Right. But there was a lot of shit that was just in service of twist, in service of making the last 2 minutes seem epic. Because, there was that awkward scene where Alfred's like, I would go on vacation and I looked up and hoped I would see you at this random cafe you would have had no idea it was at. And I get it was Alfred's daydream or something, but apparently he actually did this because at the end of the movie, Bruce Wayne apparently stalked him so that that scene could happen. And I'm not going to lie, that last 3 minutes is pretty cool. But it's okay, so him and Selena Kyle ran off. why would he run off with Selena Kyle? She was a bitch to him the entire movie until the end when she's just kind of like,
She betrays him like 5 times.
She betrays him like
robs
5 times, and the only reason they end up teaming up at the end is because he can actually get her the clean slate thing finally and get her out of Gotham. So she's like, okay, I'll do it. That is the only reason they teamed up at the end, but apparently afterwards they fell in love or something. He understood why she betrayed him and almost got him killed by Bane, and she robbed him multiple times and acted like a general asshole the whole movie. Okay. So then I guess Bruce Wayne was stalking Alfred or something to figure out when he came to Paris so that he could do that instead of just like leaving Alfred a note that's like, hey, I'm alive, but I'm going to sneak off or something. And then Donald Blake, who's there the entire time just because in the last 5 minutes Batman wanted to give him the Batcave so he could become the new Batman, I guess. And so he could make Commissioner Gordon the new Bat Signal. I guess Batman just knew magically that Donald Blake would take up the identity. But that's what I'm saying. This feels like a clunky series finale. Like the best already happened, and now they're gonna just try to tie up loose ends, and this is what this movie was. It was unfortunate. Bane was nowhere near as good as the Joker. They didn't really do much with the villains. They didn't really do much with Batman. A lot of it was just kind of boring, like, shit throughout the movie. It would be like these police officers are being thrown around or whatever. It's just scenes
They're
of
all
Gotham.
locked underground, walking around and not doing anything, not trying to
Scenes of
escape or anything.
side characters with bad dialogue pushing exposition to explain why Gotham's breaking down. Scene of Bruce Wayne in the pit doing push-ups. And not that Christian Bale's performance was bad, but it wasn't his performance in The Dark Knight or Batman Begins. Like, it seemed like it was a little, his heart was in it less. Maybe he just wasn't written as well, I don't know.
Batman's a fucking jobber in this movie too. He loses every single battle.
He does.
He
But, I mean,
loses to Bane twice, he gets bailed out by Catwoman the second time, and then he fakes his own death with the bomb. Talia kills herself
Right.
with a car crash.
And
Literally-
Bane gets shot with a missile, and that's it.
Exactly, he loses to
But-
Bane both times. He does nothing in this movie.
Right. And then, but it is that cycle of characters we don't care about that weren't in previous movies or are just boring to watch. Batman doing something that is ultimately not very exciting, and then Bane doing epic scene where he's blowing up football stadium or stealing from the stock exchange.
Yeah.
And a lot of shit was in service of twists and in service of the last 2-minute ending, which is, like I said, a decent ending, but not only really. It feels like I like the ending for like Batman and Alfred if I didn't really consider the rest of this movie being like all these elements being purposely thrown at the wall out of nowhere to set up this ending at the end. Like, I kind of like the idea of like Batman quitting and retiring after this because he's broken basically. He finds a replacement and he goes off and lives happily. That's kind of a fun ending. The whole nuke thing was cool. Whatever. But then you make a 2.5-hour movie where half the reason the movie exists is as a goal to try to earn the last 5 minutes of the movie, and you
Pretty
don't
much.
fucking earn it. You just fall short. But admittedly, for the good sequences, and it's shot nice and stuff, so I don't completely hate the movie. Like, I wouldn't call it terrible, but there's a lot of shitty stuff in this movie. There's a lot of things I can complain about. The performances of, like, Christian Bale is still, like, leagues above a lot of what we've seen in other Batman movies. The scale is really epic. How the movie looks is really nice. I don't mind fucking Anne Hathaway as Catwoman. Tom Hardy as Bane is a little But I don't
pretty bad.
think it's Tom Hardy's fault as much as it was the sound designer who made up Bane's voice, the dialogue people who kind of made it so he was built up so much just to be ultimately disappointing, and other factors. Because I like Tom Hardy in Mad Max, and Mad Max is in that movie. He's not super talkative, so I think I think Tom Hardy could have done a good Bane.
Yeah.
I just think they came up with Bane. They wanted to really build him up, but then they ultimately weren't that interested in paying him off. So
He's pretty much a glorified henchman.
yeah, I mean, it's the same shit. He's Talia's henchman in this. It's the same thing as with Poison Ivy and Batman and Robin.
Yeah.
It's very fucking comparable. The only difference is you think Bane's going to be important, and then they decided in the last 10 minutes he wasn't important at all, and you're just like, oh. So he just gets shot by a missile, and that's it. Okay. So how did he kick... I don't know. Like, why build him up? I don't know. It pisses me off, because it's like... If you didn't make Bane sound fucking ridiculous, give him ridiculous fucking dialogue, like they build him up so much, like he's so good, but then everything else fell flat, and I don't really blame Tom Hardy. I blame Christopher Nolan, and I blame the writer, because I feel like he could have been a good character, and I even like Tom Hardy in Venom. And I like him in a lot of the shit I see Tom Hardy in. So seeing him in this and seeing how they basically were like, we need big strong man, that's why we'll hire Tom Hardy. It's kind of a bummer. Although it's probably the reason he got the role in Mad Max, because I'm pretty sure that was a Legendary Pictures movie, if I'm not mistaken.
I think so.
Even though the original 3 were made by MGM, but whatever. So Aidan, would you recommend The Dark Knight Rises?
Probably. I mean, it's the end of the trilogy, so anyone watching it's probably already watched the first 2. At this point, you might as well finish it. It's not that bad. It's clunky. It's awkward. And sometimes that clunky and awkwardness makes it enjoyable, and sometimes the sequences are well done enough to make it enjoyable. And it doesn't quite come together. It's not fantastic, but it's okay enough that at the point where you'd be watching this movie, after watching the last 2, you're probably good to watch it. Connor, would you recommend The Dark Knight Rises?
I mean, yeah, if you're watching the other 2, I'd recommend it. I like the movie for the most part. I just feel like a lot of the dialogue and a lot of the logic is really flawed. But it's still a really well shot, well put together movie. The performances aren't terrible for what they're given. It's not like they're turning in like Hayden Christensen in the prequels performance, despite the fact that the dialogue is garbage. So I will say, even though a lot of the things that people say and do is stupid in this movie, for most of the competent actors, like Christian Bale, like Michael Caine, I mean, you got good performances even with the hokey dialogue. And even with the leap of logic, I think there's quite a few things you can enjoy. It's definitely the weakest in the trilogy, but I won't sit here and pretend like I hate it. It's just I feel like they tried to tangle a very complicated web but didn't care enough to actually flesh it out to work like The Dark Knight managed to do mostly. So yeah. Alright, everybody. So that concludes our Batman marathon. And we're gonna start our Batman Superman marathon next.
No, it's gonna be a
Batman
fucking
Superman
marathon.
3-hour, 20-minute movie marathon.
You could run a marathon in the time it takes to watch Batman vs Superman.
I mean,
If you were
realistically,
really fast. I mean, it's not really fast, but it's faster than I could go. But it's pretty fast time still. But
it's like a 7-minute mile.